everybody's been silent, then there's some music, then get up and do the reading.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Church. My name is Leanne Hart. I will be your worship associate for today. This morning, we are excited for two reasons. One, Michael Eseluln is here for his annual visit. And our interim minister is here for the first time. Minister Chloe Brede. I'd like to invite the chair of the interim minister search committee up to introduce Chloe.
I guess that's me. It's got to be someone, that's right. I'd like to start out by thanking the other members of the Interim Minister Search Committee, Melissa Tyrell, Joni Thompson, Donna Trimmingham, and Jennifer Holcutt. We all work together as a pretty good team to find our new minister. As a long-term member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club and custom, wait, no, well that was the other guy. My apologies to the Hells Angels in the crowd. Minister Chloe Brede, on my right, is a longtime UU with Buddhist influences who was born in New Mexico, grew up in Cincinnati and Virginia. Chloe attended college at the George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. She started Harvard Divinity School in 2015 and went on to do a clinical pastoral education residency. Before coming to PUC, Chloe was the interim minister at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church in Augusta, Maine. She got as far away from them as she could, apparently. Chloe lives in Long Beach with her partner, Div, and their dog, Dobie. Chloe Brede.
Thanks, everyone. It's so nice to be here this morning and to just sort of start to get to know all of you. I've met some folks already over the last week, but I know there's so many more folks to connect with, so I just really look forward to doing that. And I'm really grateful to the interim minister search committee for onboarding me, and also for other folks who've sort of just helped along the way. The board president, Robin, the Hearts, everyone who's helped with that. So I really look forward to serving you and working with you and us doing the best job we can during this interim time. So just blessed to be here today. I look forward to getting to know you all. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few announcements. If you would like to participate in our small group ministry program, now is your chance. Judy Carter, Judy, where are you? Right over here, will be on the patio, and she will answer any questions you have and be ready to sign you up. Every Sunday in August, the kids from RE will be collecting food, grooming products, and school supplies for donation. Please support their efforts. PUC will also host the American Red Cross Blood Drive this coming Tuesday, 8/16, from 10 to 4. Go to our website and sign up there, or you can show up here at the church. You are invited to join members of PUC and the UU Church of Long Beach to learn more about the indigenous cultures through the Friendship Powwow that will be held on Saturday, August 20th, that's next Saturday, in Hawaiian Gardens. See Jewel for more information about this activity. Also, help us out with UU the Vote. We have packs of 20 letters ready to go, focused on getting out the vote in swing states. See Kelly, she will hand you a packet and answer any questions you have about doing that. And more excitement, next Sunday will be Minister Bredet's first time in the pulpit. Also, our Sunday brunch will return. First time in many moons. And Naresh Dio wants you to know he's only going to charge you $5. Okay. After the service, the Multicultural Transformation Team will be bringing a music producer to work with the musically inclined among us to create an original song for Indigenous Peoples Day. You can participate or just observe the progress of this song being created. All of this next Sunday, the 21st. Okay, now we're ready to light our chalice. Michael's going to step forward and do that. We come together to light the chalice of our community, both in person. Yay! Always a challenge. Both in person and virtually, as a way of reminding ourselves of our common light, the spark within, the light we carry, and the light we give away. May we fan the flames of spirit within ourselves and each other, with encouragement, with compassion, with a willingness to be a witness, knowing that is enough. It is more than enough. It is what we came for. So, to introduce Michael to those who are not familiar with his work, Michael Eseluln is a regular every Sunday, at least for the last 5 or 6 years. He is a chaplain with the Sims Mann UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. A 2-time TEDx speaker, Michael speaks extensively to healthcare professionals, patient populations, and faith communities across the country. He also has worked as an activist and an educator, addressing the anti-LGBTQ bias in the larger community for over 30 years. Michael has CDs of his work available for purchase outside after service. Today, Michael brings to us the question of how many of us live our lives as if there will be a report card at the end of the term. What would constitute an A in your book, spiritually speaking? Michael?
Good morning. As a call to worship this morning, I'd like to offer this brief reading by Mark Nepo, and it's called Behind the Thunder. I keep looking for one more teacher, only to find that fish learn from water and birds learn from sky. If you want to learn about the sea, it helps to be at sea. If you want to learn about compassion, it helps to be in love. If you want to learn about healing, it helps to know of suffering. The strong live in the storm without worshiping the storm.
Please stand as you are willing and able for our opening hymn. Whoop. Number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to
It's now time for our children's moment. So will any of the kids in the room come on down? And Chelsea will have some words for us.
It's on. It is. It's on. Yeah. Hi, guys. Oh, hi, Kai. Long time no see. You know what? Did you guys look in the mirror this morning? Yeah. Yeah? What'd you see? Me? Now, I have a question. What do you see in the mirror besides, like, yourself? Think about helpful. You're helpful a little bit? Or you're kind? Do you see a kind person in the mirror? Do you see a loving person in the mirror? Yeah, are there any other things you could see in the mirror that's kind of like that? Yes?
I see sometimes a grouchy person.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But that's not the kind of person you are. It just happens. Yeah. You a sleepy person? Yeah. Yep. I get that. What'd you see, Kevin? A super cool and muscular person. That's wonderful. But what I'm trying to get at is what kind of person are you inside? What do you see that you do every day and to help or to help like somebody who's sick? You can go over and stay with them for a little while. Most of that is done with the adults. You can cook somebody a dinner or a lunch and deliver to them if they're not feeling well. Stuff like that. So all these things make what you are, the helpful, the kind. And that you should love yourself no matter what you see in that mirror. Everyone has a right to be worthy of love. And therefore, most of you get to love anyone. The question came up, what if somebody says Donald Trump? And what I said was, he's a lizard monster, and he is on his own. But you get it. Anyway, so do you love yourselves? Yeah. Yeah? Everybody? Kai? Yeah? Everybody should love themselves. And everyone in the world has that right. They have a right to feel good about themselves and to look back in that mirror and see what they see. So maybe today when you go home, look in the mirror, because I was supposed to have mirrors. Look in the mirror and see what you see besides just colors or hair or eyes or whatever you're wearing. So that's it, you guys. That's it. I think you're gonna go to school. For a classroom. Okay? Yes.
Let's sing out the children.
As we leave this friendly place,
Life give life to every face. May the kindness which we learn guide our hearts till we return.
We now enter the centering portion of our service. Please remain seated for our centering hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off, hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I give tempest round me roars, I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing when tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near? How can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing?
As we enter into a sacred time of silent reflection, I invite us to get comfortable in our seats and perhaps close your eyes. Let's take a few nice, deep breaths together, just following the empty breath. As we breathe, we let go of the concerns and thoughts of the day, of the week behind us and the week ahead of us, the year behind us and the year ahead of us. And we allow ourselves to breathe into this moment, now, in stillness. We breathe into the place beneath such concerns where we can remember that as we all sit together in silence, we are at the very center of our being, of the same essence, cut from the same cloth, yearning for the same peace, the same joy, carrying the same sorrows, sitting together in silence. As a reading this morning, I'd like to offer this, written by Brad Aaron Modlin, and it's called What You Missed That Day You Were Absent from Fourth Grade. Mrs. Nelson explained how to stand still and listen to the wind, how to find meaning in pumping gas, how peeling potatoes can be a form of prayer. She took questions on how not to feel lost in the dark. After lunch, she distributed worksheets that covered ways to remember your grandfather's voice. Then the class discussed falling asleep without feeling you had forgot something to do, something important, and how to believe the house you wake up in is your home. This prompted Mrs. Nelson to draw a chalkboard diagram detailing how to chant the Psalms during cigarette breaks, and how not to squirm for sound when your thoughts are all you hear. Also, that you have enough. The English lesson was that I am is a complete sentence. And just before the afternoon bell, she made the math equation look easy, the one that proves that hundreds of questions and feeling cold and all those nights spent looking for whatever it was you lost and one person add up to something. I call this talk Spiritual Report Cards, and I have been running away from failure ever since I was first aware there even was such a thing as a report card. I couldn't imagine anything worse than getting an F. The shame, the disgrace, so I made sure that I never did. I lived through my school years actually believing that my grade point average and my self-worth were one and the same thing. Even though a string of A's did offer some momentary consolation and some camouflage, if you will, for my true failure as a boy, as a straight boy, doing straight boy things. Not like the other boys at all. How many of us still live our lives as if there will be a report card at the end, as if we will be judged ultimately on the meaning we made of our life, our work, the things we acquired, the money we made, the kindness we showed, what kind of a parent were we? Or conversely, living with the bone-chilling fear that I must have been absent that day, unaware that this particular moral challenge would be on the final exam, and I blew it. Sharon is facing the imminent end of her life, ovarian cancer, and she struggles with that very fear. Michael, I think I'm a good person and I've lived a decent life, but I have made my mistakes, big ones, and I have my regrets. What if I don't get into heaven? As if she will be judged, ultimately, on her resume, and not on, say, the love that's in her heart or what she learned along the way, if she's even to be judged at all. My grandmother, Barbara, my dad's mom, was one tough cookie, so tough, in fact, that her standard reply to the greeting, "How are you?" was, "I'm just as mean as usual." I don't believe in failure, she would say. There's no such thing, because you can always learn something. It's a pretty commonly held perception, particularly among those given to positive thinking as a way of navigating through life, and certainly within the mythos of American notions of success. But what I found lacking in my grandmother's declaration was compassion. If I were brokenhearted that I didn't get the thing I wanted more than anything else, devastated really after working so hard to get it, I really didn't want to hear, "Well, I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you're going to learn something through this." That wasn't helpful at all in the moment, even if it proved to be true in time. Compassion, after all, only means to be with suffering, to be with it. Not to fix it, correct it, compare it, or advise it. It's not a simple or easy thing. I would say that authentic compassion for ourselves and one another might be the one true great healer. And yet, it's not an attribute I've ever seen on any report card or any measuring stick for success. At the same time, I do resonate deeply with the writings of Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. Everything can be taken from a man but this one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. So maybe, yes, it is up to us ultimately to cast the final verdict, to write that final grade, to call it a success or failure. But I find myself struggling with that all too human urge to cast any verdict at all. This need to see life through this dualistic lens of success and failure, win or lose. What if it's not so simple as that? In the early 90s, I had a design business, and there was a big economic downturn that hit LA at the time, and my business fell off to zero. I needed to do something quick. As a stopgap survival strategy, I took the CBEST test, I got an emergency teaching credential, and I was hired as a substitute school teacher for Inglewood Unified School District. This was a few weeks after the Rodney King uprisings in LA. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but soon enough I discovered I did not have the constitution to face those schools every day. So in my off days, I volunteered at Project Angel Food, delivering home-cooked meals to homebound people with AIDS. These were the peak years of the AIDS crisis, and I got involved with a fledgling volunteer AIDS hospice group called Project Nightlight. But at the time, I felt like an abject failure, a total loser. No one could convince me otherwise. I assiduously avoided friends who might call me, dare to ask the unthinkable question, so what are you doing these days? What's more, I was convinced that I was a spiritual failure, that God had somehow dispensed all the components to live a successful life to everyone else except me. Firmly attached to that idea. And yet when I look back on that point in time now, I see it as the pivot point that made this part of my life possible and held the door open, pointed me toward this career of chaplaincy that I love so much, and that it seems to make so much sense of this circuitous path of my life so far. So am I to look back on that time now and call it a success? Even a blessing, hurting so badly that I wanted to die? The older I get, I find the less patience I have for that either-or kind of thinking. In the world of cancer, the stakes are much higher when it comes to our perceptions, conceptions about what is success and failure. If this diagnosis means the imminent end of my physical body, does that mean that Western medicine failed? My doctor failed. This drug trial failed. My vegan diet failed. My positive affirmations failed. My prayers failed. God failed me. I failed God. These profound experiences of failure are not just the province of patients. Over the years, walking beside dozens and dozens of folks left behind, the bereaved, they too almost universally struggle with some experience of failure. If I hadn't spent so much time at work, I could have taken better care of her. She may still be here. If it weren't for my anxiety and depression, I know I caused her so much distress. That's why the cancer came back. It's my fault. If I had just insisted that he go to the doctor sooner, if we had just gotten a second or third opinion, it's my fault. The thing about needing to cast a verdict one way or the other, I find, is that very seldom is there room for the verdict to be not guilty. Deanna is living with a very aggressive colon cancer. She's also deeply rooted in this sort of New Age philosophy that would say that she can create and manifest her life exactly as she envisions it through positive prayer and affirmation and attitude. Up until now, that philosophy has worked rather well for her. She's found herself a wonderful mate. She continues to enjoy great success in her real estate business. She's a planner and a goal setter. She likes goals with nice, measurable outcomes. So each win only solidifies her faith that much more. How could it be otherwise? But now the game is changing and her cancer is progressing. That whole paradigm of goal setting becomes a far more challenging, even murky proposition. If cure is medically off the table, what's the most she can hope for? Just more time living with cancer. What's more, she feels like a spiritual failure. Michael, I guess my prayers weren't strong enough. I didn't believe enough. I wasn't positive enough. It was my fault. Over 20 years ago, I was covering an overnight on-call shift at UCLA, and it was a Sunday night. I was paged very late at night to come up to the ICU because the elderly matriarch of a large African-American family was very near death. The family wanted some support and a prayer. I offered them that, and then I left. And a few hours later, I was paged to return to the unit because the woman had passed. And now the family had wanted just company until their pastor arrived. And when he arrived, he took one look at the scene and he said, "It looks like you all didn't pray hard enough." As if this loving family had failed their mother, as if death itself were a failure. And if that's true, we are all guaranteed an F on our final report card. This whole notion of success and failure, spiritual success and failure, again, I have trouble with it, this either-or kind of thinking. Over the years, I've walked beside countless folks, many rooted in kind of a deep faith, and others with no faith at all, but with a common longing, a longing for strength, strength of spirit, strength of faith. I want to believe more, as if strong faith means spiritual success. And when we tease apart, what do you mean by that, strong faith? It usually means certainty. I want to know that this drug trial is going to work. I want to know that I have the best doctor possible. I want to know that I'm going to beat this. There's a famous German-American theologian, Paul Tillich, who says the opposite of faith isn't doubt, it's certainty. If I'm certain I'm not really walking in faith anymore, am I? Faith, in my view, might better be described as a willingness to step off into the unknown with my fears and doubts and in tow and continuing to walk anyway, with my eyes and heart open, with curiosity, with patience, with humility, with compassion, even for my experience of failure. With Deanna, who loved to set nice, clean goals with nice, clean outcomes, measurable outcomes, we looked at what another kind of goal might be without such a tidy outcome. What about a goal of coming to peace with mess? Coming to peace with uncertainty, with powerlessness, offering herself the grace to be a human being. Spiritual success, spiritual failure, these are tough concepts. In this time of the pandemic and all of these extreme measures we have all had to endure, there have been many of us, myself among them, who have sought to redefine, reframe what we mean by spiritual success. The times seem to demand it. And there are those eternally optimistic spiritual folks who have likened this to a golden opportunity, a chance to hit the reset button for life on planet Earth, to refine and distill all the extraneous to what is absolutely essential. And they embrace this. Not me. I have grieved. I never realized just how much of a social animal I am, how much of an extrovert. That for me, real human contact and touch in time and space is like oxygen. So much so that such connections and such connectedness comes close to the meaning of life itself. So much so that for me, sitting in a darkened, sold-out theater, knee to knee with strangers, being moved to laughter or tears by the same humanity on display on the stage, becomes a religious rite. It's a ritual. Just as it is to gather with my dancing chums on Saturday afternoon and dance in the same dance studio, in the same class, on the same floor, in front of the same mirror, dancing to the same music. And afterward, getting to partake in Holy Communion, complaining about everything that hurts. Just as it is to travel to some faraway land and get lost in some alleyway among a bunch of locals, many of whom may never have even heard of Los Angeles. Just as it is to hug someone, a friend, a loved one in trouble, a patient, a stranger, so much so that when these experiences were off the table for the foreseeable future, maybe even for the rest of my life, I'm ashamed to say that a part of me wondered whether life was worth living. Not like those spiritually optimistic folks at all. I came face to face with the limitations of my own resilience and adaptability. I didn't embrace it at all, and in turn I would call myself a spiritual failure and give myself an F. By contrast, Bernadette, 31 years old, lives with this unbelievable sense of curiosity and acceptance and humor. She seems to live in the place of, gee, I wonder what that would be like. So much so that when she began her chemotherapy and her beautiful red hair began to fall out, we had that conversation I often have, usually with women, about how to meet this challenge. Some will choose to preemptively shave their heads as a self-empowering gesture. Some might choose to make a lighthearted ritual out of it, dye their hair green, invite their friends over to help them shave their heads. No, she said, I just think it'd be really interesting to see what it'd be like to have your hair fall out. And when her treatment wrapped up and that year had come to a close, she was reflecting on the year that had passed and said, Michael, I guess I'd have to say, when I look back on it, it was a pretty good year. Bernadette, in a year that includes a cancer diagnosis, chemotherapy, a radical double mastectomy, radiation, reconstructive surgery, if that doesn't make for a bad year, what on earth would? I don't know. Losing my sense of humor, I guess. A spirit like that cannot be broken. I walked beside Grace over the last 6 years of her life, ovarian cancer. She had lived this life of dizzying twists and turns, both personally and professionally, zigzagging her way across the country. I asked her once, Grace, if there were a young person in your life, a grandchild or somebody, and they asked you, Grace, what piece of wisdom do you have for me after having lived such an interesting life? She didn't take much time at all to respond. When the time comes, be ready to go, she said. She actually echoes Joseph Campbell as he describes the hero journey. In order to be a hero, one must be prepared for when the moment comes. That might be the point of all spirituality, he says. Donna and Lois had shared the last 48-some years of their lives together, late 70s, early 80s, so at ease, so respectful, so loving with one another, creating a family in a culture that is utterly hostile to two women calling themselves a family. Lois had been living with ovarian cancer for the last 7 years. And as her disease progressed, she chose to take advantage of aid in dying medication for when the going got to be unbearable. She was a no-nonsense, engaging gal who was way more interested in hearing what you had to say than telling her story one more time. Sometimes it was hard to know just how much suffering she was carrying because she did it with such grace. Though thoroughly contemporary, knew her way around a computer, she was also deeply steeped in old school values like letter writing and sending thank you notes. One Saturday night, she leaned over to Donna and said, Honey, I think the time's come and I'm going to take the medication tomorrow morning. Well, honey, if it's that bad, why not take it now? I can't. I've got too many things to do. What do you have to do? I've got some birthday cards to send and some thank you notes to write and some bills to pay. I'll help you do that. So on the last night of her life, after 80 years on planet Earth, she spends it sitting around the dining table, engaged in the most mundane activities, but activities that are nevertheless rooted in kindness, in consideration, in connectedness. This moment is enough. That is an image of spiritual success in my book. The next morning, Lois got up, put her best red silk pajamas on, and said, I guess I might as well go out in style. If there were such a thing as spiritual report cards, I'd give them both an A+. As I would to Bernadette for that unfailing curiosity and acceptance and humor, as I would to Grace for her incomparable ability to just ride the wave of life. Spiritual success, strong faith, you bet, without a shred of certainty in sight. If there is such a thing as spiritual report cards, I would hazard to guess it is rooted in our capacity for compassion, for ourselves, for each other, for this moment as it is and as it is not, for our powerlessness, and maybe paradoxically even finding a deeper kind of power in that. I'm a big documentary film fan, and I remember in 1995 a wonderful Oscar-nominated documentary called Troublesome Creek. It was a story of a family farm in Iowa that had been in the family for generations, over 125 years. Russell and Mary, though they're quite much older now, they still work the farm, having raised their kids who've all moved away. But they're facing foreclosure because of a farming crisis. And so it's all hands on deck. The kids all come back to Iowa to do what they can to kind of save the family farm. We're given to believe it will kill Mom and Dad if they lose the farm and have to move to a little house in town. So you're kind of dying a little bit as you're watching them auction off the farm equipment and the livestock and their furniture. You see Mary caressing her Ethan Allen dining table. Oh, the Thanksgiving dinners I've served at this table. Sold. They just can't lose the farm. But they do. And to everyone's shock and amazement, they flourish. Russell, in particular, he becomes a new man, unencumbered by all that back-breaking labor and nonstop worry. He's one of those guys that had these wild, untamed, bushy eyebrows going every which way, wondering, what's up with the eyebrows, Russell? And there he is in the barber shop, getting them all trimmed up, looking his best. I'll never forget the last line of the film. Their daughter, Jean, is narrating. Success and failure. Sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. Yes, it is. So be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain Michael Eseluln. Now it is time that we have set aside to support this beloved institution, the offertory.
This is if you're worried about your spiritual report card.
Hello?
Oh! At words poetic, I'm so pathetic that I always have found it best, instead of getting them off my chest, to let them rest unexpressed. I hate reading my serenading, 'cause I'll probably miss a bar. So if this ditty is not so pretty, at least it'll tell you how great you are. You're the top. You're the Colosseum. You're the top. You are the Louvre Museum. You're a melody from a symphony by Strauss. You're a Ben a bun in a Shakespeare sonnet, you're Mickey Mouse. You're the Nile, you're the Tower of Pisa, you're the smile on the Mona Lisa. I'm a worthless check, a total wreck, I'm a flop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top.
Thank you. Now, time for our closing hymn. Please stand as you are willing and able. Hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
331. Wait, what? It should be 331. Life is the greatest gift of
sorry.
all. That's okay. It's up there too.
It's that one. Life is the greatest gift of all the riches on this earth. Life and its creatures, great and small, of high and lowly birth. So treasure it and measure it with deeds of shining worth. Mind is the brightest gift of all, its thought no barrier mars. It seeks creation's hidden plan, its quest surmounts all bars. It rains the wind, it chains the storm, it weighs the outmost stars. We are of life, its shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust our temples lift, our vision soars on wings. For seed and root, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings.
I invite us to maybe close our eyes one more time and take a few nice deep breaths together. We imagine maybe that we could take hands with one another in a great circle, and as we do, we feel the connection, the energy that passes between us and connects us in the family of things. In that place, might we remember to hang on to one another, to that connection, and loosen our grip just a bit on our need for things to be one thing or the other, our desire to cast a verdict, to call it a success or failure, to write a final report card. In this place, may we all be allowed to be who we are, as we are, where we are, with grace, with compassion. So be it.
I would like to invite Minister Brede to read the final words with me. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all of our differences, beneath all of our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salem. Namaste, and blessed be. And now our service truly begins.
Than the highest mountain, and deeper than the deep blue sea. That's how I will love you, darling, endlessly. Softer than the gentle breezes, and stronger than the wild oak tree. That's how I will love you, darling, endlessly. Oh, my love, you are my heaven, you are my kingdom, you are my crown. Oh, my love, you're all I pray for. You were made for these arms to surround. Faithful as the morning sunrise, and sacred as love should be. That's how I will love you, darling, endlessly. Oh, my love, you are my heaven, you are my kingdom, you are my crown. Oh, my love, you're all I pray for. You were made for these arms to surround. Faithful as the morning sunrise, and sacred as love should be. That's how I will love you, darling, endlessly, darling, endlessly. Thank you.